um, we might get going, hey? Well, welcome everyone. Well, great to have you here. If you're joining for the first time, so glad you can be with us. Please, my name's Dan. If you haven't met me before, yeah, we're just stoked to be together. Stoked to have everyone join in. Sorry, I got distracted by Darren's photo, which was a success, mate, when the camera's off. Yeah, really honoured to have Darren Kitto here, bring in part two. Darren often doesn't need an introduction because he's very well known in our world, but he's a general manager of the Hillsong channel and also just an absolute legend in our church. Growing up here, homegrown in the Hills district, and you know, from his Kellyville Cracker days through to now where he's moved over to California. He's going to be speaking to us from there. I was saying to Dazza earlier, a little bit like Terminator 2. I think the sequel is going to be better than the first one. So really thrilled to have Dazza sharing. But before he does that, I was going to ask, love to hear good reports. And been speaking to a number of our kingdom builders and different business people around the country. And I thought Paul, if Paul McMillan's on, he's kind of had something cool happen, a good report in his world. Paul, if you wouldn't mind unmuting and just sharing that with us, mate, that'd be great.
Hi everyone from Darwin. How's everyone going? Just in this brief time, I just wanted to quickly share with you that during this time, God is faithful to us and his promises stand strong regardless of what's happening. So my wife and I own a dental practice up in Darwin, and 3 weeks ago we had to close our practice because of restrictions put on our industry, and we had to stand down all our staff. So over the last 3 weeks we've had to hibernate our practice, and it's been quite trying for both of us spiritually and as a family, but also for our staff. On Monday, there was word around the community, the dental industry, that they were putting a proposal to the Prime Minister to see if we could relax the restrictions placed on us. And on Tuesday, there was an announcement made that actually shocked us, that we went to a level 2 restriction. So what that means is, as of Monday, we can open our practice and trade at about 60% capacity, but we'll be able to bring our team back, we're able to come out of hibernation. But the thing that stands strong for me is Daddy God is so faithful to us, and his promises over our year, over our business, over our lives, they stand strong. He kept on saying to us through the Spirit, just trust me. And it was like, it was mind-blowing for us, because he said, look, you've done this before. We started our practice 4 years ago and we had no money. So we have no money now, and we're doing it again with no money. So he's like he said to David, proving himself with the lion and the bear. Now we're killing a Goliath again with this. So the praise report is, we're frantically now opening our practice. We've gone from hibernation to we've got to open on Monday and got to shave and put on a shirt again. But yeah, no, I'm in shock. We're actually in shock. We don't know what to do at the moment. We're trying to get it all organised quickly, but Daddy is so faithful. That's all I've got to say. He's faithful through the dark times, regardless. We're favoured to succeed, and we are. We're coming through the other side already, and that's 3 weeks. He's done it in 3 weeks for us. So that's my praise report from Darwin.
Amazing, Paul. Thank you, mate. And you guys are absolute inspiration. And thanks for being part of our world and being open the whole way about your journey. And yeah, mate, still standing with you, praying with you. And as always, just want to make sure everyone knows, like, please reach out. Like, if you need prayer, if you need encouragement, support, please reach out. Hit me at dan.purdysmith@hillsong.com if you like. Just however, if you've got an email business connect at Hillsong, I'll get to it. But we just want to make sure that we're very accessible to you guys, because as a community, we're here to do it together. And you know, some of us are doing well, some of us aren't. But you know, it's times like this that we lift up those that aren't. So yeah, please don't do it alone. But I'm going to hand over to Darren now. Daz is going to share with us. And mate, once again, we're really honoured you give time in the peak of your day. It's about 2 p.m. over there in California. And Daz is going to share for however long he would like. And then off the back of that, Kent's going to jump in and ask Darren a couple of questions. And you guys feel free to put any questions through on the chat that you might have, as you know, that are prompted as Darren's sharing. But if you're able to give the little clap reaction on your screen, why don't you give Darren a clap in? And if not, just do a clap like this. Honored to have you, mate.
Thank you. Thanks, Dan. Hey, Dan, before I start, I've got a question for you. You said as long as I like.
Look, we try to be done by 8, but
okay, so
you've been my leader for years, mate. I'll follow you wherever you go.
20 minutes max would be probably better than as long as I like. I'm just setting my timer to make sure I don't use up too much of you guys' time because I'm in quarantine. I can talk all day. Good to see you. I'm an alien in America. Donald Trump has cut off all immigration, but I've got through the loophole. I've already got a green card, so I'm here to stay. It's good to see you all. Thanks for coming back. I've had so much feedback from last week, so thanks so much to everybody for just reaching out and just saying thanks. So I talked last week about this whole idea of tension and how tension is something that, you know, to be honest with you, tension is highly valuable in all of our lives. And I think we've got somebody. Oh, there we go. Mute him. Good to see. Well done, Dan. Took the power. I'm pretty sure it was Bear. Oh, he's got a deer up now. Sorry, I got distracted. But the whole idea of tension is that tension isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think if we're not careful, we can react to tension in the wrong way. We can be scared of tension. We can flee from it. Some people go into war against tension. They're like, I don't want any tension to be in my organization. I don't want there to be any tension. I want everything to be smooth. Some people just ignore it. They just play dumb, like there's no tension, just ignore it. I don't know if you've ever walked into a meeting and realized that this meeting is full of tension. And I find it amazing to watch different leaders respond. And so often leaders just kind of ignore it, like it's not even in the room. Some leaders are blind to it. They fail to detect it. They don't actually realize that there's tension in the room. And so they just kind of carry on business as normal and fail to realize that there's something that needs to be either addressed or embraced. Some people take the approach of just, let's just kind of gently massage the tension, try and make everything go away, everything all right. I think some people's response to tension is that they placate it. They just kind of, you know, in a way almost endorse it without challenging it or without embracing it. And, you know, then there's other leaders who embrace it. They realize that tension is actually one of the most powerful tools that they have in their organization. And if we embrace tension, we can actually go further down the track. I use the example of the bow and arrow. I'm getting stronger, guys. You know, without tension, the arrow will not be propelled to where it needs to go. And I think all of us need to understand that we've got to, at some way, shape or form, depending on our own leadership ability, embrace tension. Understand that tension helps us. Tension takes the elevator to the next level. Without tension, the elevator will stay on the same level. You know, I remember being a young guy with no money. My car broke down, calling my brother, can you know, come and tow my car? And we'd go through this journey of you know, we'd tie the rope around his tow bar and then try and find something that wouldn't pull off. You know, if we started to tow the car, usually the bumper bar would come straight off. That's a free tip for everybody. I learned the hard way. But, you know, try and somehow tow the car back to a place where we could get it fixed without costing too much money. Well, the reality is that when the tension came off the rope, it created drama, because the tension would come off and then all of a sudden the tension would come back on with such force that it would create, you know, a problem. The bumper would come off, the front wheels would come off, you know, all these kind of things. But, you know, keeping the tension in the line actually helped us get to where we wanted to be. And, you know, Romans 7 and verse 14 talks, it's Paul, And I want to read it to you from the Message, if that's okay. It says, "I know that all God's commands are spiritual, but I'm not. Isn't this also your experience? Yes, I'm full of myself. After all, I've spent a long time in sin's prison. What I don't understand about myself is that I decide one way, but then I act another way, doing things I absolutely despise. So if I can't be trusted to figure out what is best for myself and then do it, it becomes obvious that God's command is necessary. But I need something more. For if I know the law, but I can't keep it, if the power of sin within me keeps sabotaging my best intentions, I obviously need help. I realize that I don't have what it takes. I can will it, but I can't do it." Anyone ever felt like that? I can will it, but I can't do it. And this is the Apostle Paul. I mean, this guy wrote 2/3 of the New Testament, yet he's saying, I will it, but I can't do it. I want to do what I feel like God's called me to do, but I have this battle, this tension with things that I can't do. He says, my decisions, such as they are, don't result in actions. Something has gone wrong deep within me and gets the better of me every time. It happens to me so regularly, it's predictable. The moment I decide to do good, sin is there to trip me up. I truly delight in God's commands, but it's pretty obvious that not all of me joins in that delight. Parts of me rebel, covertly rebel, and just when I least expect it, they take charge. I've tried everything and nothing helps. I'm at the end of my rope. Is there no one who can do anything for me? Isn't that the real question? The answer, thank God, is that Jesus can and does. He acted to set things right in his life of contradictions, where I want to serve God with all my heart, yet I'm pulled by the influence of sin to do something totally different. The New King James Version says, I do the things that I don't want to do. I don't do the things that I do want to do. There's this tension. We know what's right. We know what we believe. We know what we stand for. But at the end of the day, there's a tension in place that keeps us on track. The tension between what God wants us to do and what we want to do actually centers us into this position where we find ourselves actually being productive in line with God's plan and purpose for our life. So I want to kind of talk a little bit for the next few minutes about a few tensions. I covered a few last week. If you weren't here, maybe Dan can send you his notes, because I know he's taking good notes. But a few tensions that I've discovered in life that might help us. The first one is the tension between excellence and functioning. How many people love excellence? Me, Dan, there's a few of us. We all have this goal in mind, this excellent goal in mind. We envisage excellence. We see excellence somewhere down the track. We believe for excellence. But if we're not careful, that goal of excellence can stop us from doing anything. So we think everything's got to be excellent. So rather than do something that's maybe not quite what we'd hoped, we hold out for the hope that there's going to be excellence somewhere in the future. But the reality is, not everything we launch is going to be excellent. Not everything that we envisage is going to be exactly how we envisage it. But if we wait for the excellence, we will never make progress. I was reading up about Da Vinci. Anyone an art fan? Couple of people, yes. I don't have any Da Vincis, in case anybody's wondering. I've got a photo of Vision Rescue on the wall behind me, but it wasn't painted by Da Vinci. I wish it was. I probably would have sold it by now if it was, but hey. And the thing about that people say about Da Vinci is he was a perfectionist. And I think all creatives are perfectionists. They want this excellence, But you take, for example, one of his great works, which is the Mona Lisa. He, the last value that was quoted on the Mona Lisa was $850 million. Now, just in case you're wondering, is that Australian dollars or is that US dollars? That's US dollars. So that's about 2 billion Australian dollars at the moment. Sorry for anybody who works in US market. But, 850 million US dollars. Now, the artist, Da Vinci, he never officially declared it to be finished. To him, it was still a work in progress, yet the Mona Lisa, the $850 million painting, was never declared to be finished. I think all of us have this goal or this vision one day of perfection. I want it to be exactly how I want it to be. And that can sometimes hold us back from progress. But the progress is it actually comes when we embrace the reality of, hey, it might not be perfect, but we actually got to make progress somewhere along the line. I believe excellence is the goal, and that's great. But if we can't function because we're pursuing excellence, then it's going to hold all of us back. I think function without the goal of excellence will mean that we get our job done, but we never actually grow or attain the level of excellence that God has for us. We have to maintain the tension. Don't do nothing because we have a goal of excellence, but don't do poorly because we just need to function. We've got to challenge ourselves and believe that God actually wants us to achieve great things, but not at the expense of progress. So, I think the tension between excellence and functioning has to remain. I want to encourage everybody, I don't know what you're launching, what you're dreaming of, what you're envisaging, but don't hold back on growth or progress because everything isn't perfect. And don't hold back on excellence, because you just got to make a buck. Somewhere in the middle, we have to maintain that tension. I think the next one, is that okay? Everyone find that helpful? All right, good. We've got a few thumbs up. That's good. I think the next one for me would be the tension between what matters to me and what matters to us. What matters to me is sometimes very different to what matters to us. If you think about your organization, the thing that you're leading, I think sometimes if we focus too much on what matters to me, we can become so encompassed in trying to achieve, that personal satisfaction that we forget what matters to us. I think about that, from the perspective of the church. I'm obviously involved in church life, church leadership. I have visions for my own life. And if I'm not careful, I can get caught up in what matters to me rather than what matters to the bigger picture, which is the us. And I think in any organization, sometimes what matters to me and what matters to us have to give a little bit. We have to sometimes die to our own personal dreams for the bigger picture that we're believing for God to, cause to happen in our organization. I think, for me personally, some things matter to me that don't matter to the organization. Some things matter to me that don't matter to my job. And if I can't separate the two, I can get so caught up in what matters to me that it comes at the expense of what matters to the us. And sometimes what matters to me is really not that important. It's not important to the organization. It might be important to me. It might take the forefront of my mind, but the reality is it doesn't really matter to the us. I think if we're not careful, we find ourselves so focused on the me that we sacrifice the us at the expense of the me. The tension has to remain. I have to be careful and mindful about what matters to me. I have to find what matters to me somewhere in the picture, but not at the expense of what matters to us. For example, as a church, my political perspective doesn't matter to us. If I want to vote for Pauline Hanson, which I don't, but if I do, that's my perspective. But does that really matter to us? Is that enough for me to kind of start to take this bent towards a certain way of thinking or a way of life at the expense of the us? If, my own personal priorities, what I want for my family, what I want for my finances is important to me, but is that more important to the us? Your personal flaws, those kind of things, what I heard on the street, we can become so distracted by the things that matter to us personally that we sacrifice what matters to us corporately. I think about this in church life because that's the space that I'm in. And obviously there's certain things that I have to lay aside. If I had my way, we'd stop everything we're doing. We'd go down to Skid Row. We'd help every single person find a house. But if I think about it, big picture, what matters to us is more important, because if what matters to us is laid aside, we never have the resources to do the things that matter to me. So I've got to buy into what matters to us so that we have the resources to what matters to me. And I think it can be just applied to every area of our life. What matters to us corporately is just as important as what matters to me personally. And we have to maintain the tension in the line. Sorry, I'm looking for my tension. The tension, I'm getting stronger, guys. Since last week, I can pull that back a lot further. Keeping the tension in the line, it's so important to progress and so important to what God's called us to do. And the last one I want to share with you today, sorry, I've lost my timer on my phone. Oh, I've still got 5 minutes. We're good. Is the tension between what I'm asked to do and what I want to do. How many people know, if you're not the boss, well, to be honest with you, all of us have a boss. If we're the boss, we have a client, right? So what the client wants us to do is what we've been asked to do. And what we want to do is what's sometimes ruling our mind. And to be honest with you, if you're doing a deal, like for example, I know a couple of our guys are in real estate or development, what we want is a price. What the client wants is a price and a product. Somewhere in between, there's a happy medium and there's a tension. If we don't get the tension right, the deal goes away and none of us get what we want. Somewhere in the middle is we give, what we want versus, what we've been asked is the tension. And somewhere, there's going to be a breaking point in any deal. Sorry, this is my limit. I'm not going to do it. But the reality is in life, what we've been asked to do, what we've been asked to do by our boss, what we've been asked to do by our clients versus what we want to do. Sometimes we just want to take the day off. We just want to go play golf. My name is Darren Kitto. It's been 5 weeks since my last golf game. I'm very distracted by golf. I just got an email saying that golf is opening up in Orange County. I'm ready to go play golf. But the reality is what I'm needed to be doing right now is leading our church through a pandemic. There's a tension, what I want to do and what I've been asked to do. And I think all of us need to understand that tension. It's a powerful tension and it actually helps us to make progress in our life. Sometimes what we want to do is just nobody bother us. I want to get ahead in my own work schedule. I want to answer all my emails. If I had my way, sometimes I would say to my staff, hey, can you leave me alone for 7 days? I've got to do all my work. But the reality is they need my input to be able to do what they've been asked to do. So what I want to do and what I've been asked to do, they're different. The tension has to remain. I have to find the balance between doing my work and helping them do their work. Sometimes our desire or what we want to do is comfort. I just, want everything to be sweet, everything to be rosy, the money to keep rolling in, but I want to be comfortable. But there's this tension because that's an unrealistic picture and it's an unrealistic world for most of us of what we have to get done to achieve that level that we want to achieve in our life. For me personally, I've learned to embrace tension. I've learned to understand that tension is powerful. I've learned to understand that tension takes us where we want to go, not to cut the tension, not to just kind of opt out. People who decide what I want to do versus what I've been asked to do, I'm just going to do what I want to do. They find themselves out of work. They find themselves out of clients. They find themselves, maybe comfortable for a season, but realizing that what they'd been asked to do was facilitating what they wanted to do. So somewhere in the middle, we have to find the happy place between not doing everything that everybody asks us to do, not doing everything that we want to do personally, but somewhere in the middle, finding this tension place that keeps us on track with what we believe we're called to do and what other people need of us. So there you go. There's 3 tensions. And my time is up.
So good.
So good, Daz. Amazing. Thank you again. Add my thanks to Dan Purdy-Smith for your willingness to give part of your day, the best part of your day perhaps, apart from Dawn on the golf course, which isn't happening.
Of course.
Having said that, the chat did light up when you talked about golf, so you clearly hit the button there. Actually, I was going to ask, I think Magoo's here somewhere. Brent Garrett, I reckon that warrants a boom. If you could jump in, unmute yourself and just encourage dads in the way that we do here in Australia. It's the 11:15 service. You're on the front row.
Oh!
Oh, wow. He came in hot.
Just gave myself a headache.
Hey, me too.
That was perfect. Thanks, Brent. Oh, so good. I hope you feel encouraged, Daz. A few questions. What's the tension that has caught you most by surprise in life? Aware that they exist. You've articulated some of them so beautifully over the last couple of weeks, but what's the one that's caught you by surprise? I just didn't think there'd be tension there, but there is, and I've had to deal with it. I had to work through it, embrace it.
This one for me is, I guess, related to what I do, which is, I build church. That's what I do. But one of the tensions for me, and it's actually one of my points in this series, is the tension between the awkwardness that we feel versus God doing what only God can do. For me, I hate anything cringy. Zero cringe factor is my goal. When it comes to church services, I want zero cringe factor. I don't want to deal with cringe. If I watch a TV show that's got cringe in it, man, I tap out straight away because for whatever reason, my mind can't process cringe. I hate it, But then I realized that whilst I hate it, God uses it. I worked with a guy who, in a printing factory, I was a printer before I was a pastor in another life. And he was a heroin addict. He was spiraling downwards. And through a series of circumstances, I was able to lead him to the Lord. And he got radically saved. But he got saved in an awkward way. I don't know how to say it other than like this guy, you'd be walking to lunch down the street and he'd be saying to people, "Do you know Jesus?" And I'm like, "Dude, I just want to get a sandwich. Can you just, stop this?" And we worked on Parramatta Road at Glebe, and he would put a sign up in the window because we worked right outside the bus store, which would say, "Jesus loves you, give your life to him, he'll set you free," And I'd be trying to work away at the print shop. And to be honest with you, I found this guy very embarrassing. I'd been trying my way to win people to the Lord, and he was basically ruining it for me. Anyway, he was doing this one day. He's tapping on the window as people got off the bus, and he's holding up his sign saying, "Jesus loves you. You need to be saved." And I'm standing there trying to be as far away from the window as I possibly could, thinking, how could God use this? And while this is all going on, one of the girls comes up to me who's working beside me, and she says, "Do you think that message is for me?" And I'm like, well, trying to overcome the cringe, but at the same time realizing that God can use anything. And so I said to her, "Yeah, look, I do actually believe that message is for you. I don't necessarily agree with the delivery, but I do believe it's for you." And she said, "Would you pray for me?" And so I knelt down in the printing factory on Parramatta Road with Leah on the printing floor and led her to the Lord, And for me, it was a vital lesson in life. What we think God can't use, God can actually use. And so, yeah, I don't know. That's for me. It's like realizing that we don't know everything. God has this way of operating in a totally different realm. What we think is going to connect with people, God's going to use something totally different. And the thing that might see your friend, family, neighbor saved might not be your perfect, eloquent presentation of the gospel. It could be something totally random that you find totally cringeworthy, but he's going to use it anyway. So, he's bigger than what we think.
So good. Outstanding. Hey, Ruth's asked a question in the chat here, Daz. How do you know when the tension meets your breaking point or is something you have to deal with internally? So at what point is that, is it an internal thing for you to deal with? And at what point is it something you actually have to let go of because it could break you?
Yeah. Oh, well, I think you've got to use data for that stuff, The example I'm using, with a property deal, for example, the breaking point might be, I'm going to lose money on this deal. So, all right, let's move on from the deal and let's understand it's not going to work. But I think for all of us, making sure that it's not our own pride that's holding something so tight that we can't actually make progress. Not holding on too tight that, because of pride, we stop something from happening. but yeah, for me, the breaking point is, you know, you've got to sometimes go into every situation working out, okay, where do I want to finish? What's my bottom line? If that doesn't happen, I've got to walk away from the deal. And some people get so caught up in the chase that they're like, I'm going to do a deal at any cost, and it ends up costing them greatly. But I think knowing before you go into the deal, you know, what your expectation is, what your bottom line is, what your hope is, and finding a happy medium somewhere in the middle, rather than getting so caught up on pride, so caught up on what our outcome goal is, that we fail to realize that progress is better than nothing at all, you know?
It's great. You touched on pride just then, Daz. What are the kind of things aside from pride, and that you might want to unpack that some more, even that stop people embracing the tensions that are before them in life?
Well, I think some people are in it for the thrill of the chase, you know, and get so caught up in victory that we fail to realize that, hey, it might not be the end victory. We might not be holding the trophy aloft, but we may be in third place with a bronze trophy, and that's okay. You know, sometimes the whole faith mindset is, you know, I'm believing that I'm going to be first place every time, but all of us know, you know, we're all old enough to know that we're not going to be in first place every time. Sometimes we're going to be, you know, on the lower end of the deal. Sometimes we're going to be on the higher end of the deal, but a deal's a deal. And, you know, if we allow our pride to determine whether or not we keep things moving and keep things growing, I think sometimes we walk away from great opportunities. I lead our Hillsong channel, and, you know, Hillsong Church, you know, we're a big church, and we believe in this theology, or this mindset that we're the head, not the tail, you know, that we're above, not beneath, that, you know, we're going to be the leader and the innovator. And we came into this relationship with TBN, which is a huge organization in America that has the same mindset. They have this mindset that they're the head, not the tail, that they're ahead, not beneath. And somewhere in between, we have to become partners. So if we both have that mindset going in, we both have to understand that there is going to need to be some give and take for this to be a successful relationship. And I think both of us have worn that well. You know, we've both given a bit and we've both taken a bit. And I think, you know, if pride gets in the way of those things, nothing will ever happen. Channel can't be a success. There'll be no progress for it. But if we both realize we've got to give a bit, and that's what partnership is, and that's how we've been able to see the success that we've been able to see.
So good. A great question here from Liam, Daz. How do you lead and empower a team whose willingness to embrace tension is different from yours?
Well, I think to be honest with you, I think that's an education. And we've got to make sure that team aren't trying to cut their teeth on our dime. In other words, that the team aren't trying to prove themselves as, you know, these phenomenal alpha leaders, what we're paying them at the expense of the organization. So we've got to teach them to give and take. We've got to teach them that, hey, I know you want to prove yourself in this situation, and this is the ultimate goal. But if we don't get to that ultimate goal, but we get close to it, that's going to be okay also. And I think sometimes younger guys, especially people that we're bringing through, they want to impress, and they go in so hard that they actually disperse the whole team. They ruin deals, they ruin opportunities because they're so gung-ho about trying to impress you. And I think if we lower the expectations on what's perfect, you know, instead of sending them in with, hey, this is the ultimate goal, send them in with what you'd be happy with, and rather try and set them up for a lose with something that's, we all know is impossible to achieve or get over the line. Teach them how to negotiate, teach them how to give a little bit, teach them how to take a little bit. Obviously, you've got to send them in with bottom lines. But for me, it's like we sometimes send younger people in with deals that we could never achieve ourselves, expecting them to make that happen, or hoping that they would make that happen, but in the back of our mind, knowing it's impossible. And they come back to us with this deal that we think's great, but they think is a failure because we set them up with wrong expectations. So understanding the bandwidth of expectations, I think, is really important.
So good. This is great. I hope you guys are taking notes. There's so much gold in this. Hey, last question, Daz. I love the point you made this morning around the tension between me and us. in a church context, Pastor Brian says what we're part of is bigger than the part we play, speaking to that tension in a church context. In the situation we find ourselves right now in the middle of this COVID-19 situation, what the tension that exists between what our business needs as business people. We've got businesses, we've got commitment to church. There's this bigger us thing we know that is bigger than us, but our businesses are requiring more of our attention than they ever have. What would you say to the business person today that is stewarding what's in their hand in their business and yet is committed to as ever with church when that tension arises?
I don't want to put words in Pastor Brian's mind, but I think back to the GFC in 2008, where Brian told this story about the Lockyer Valley. And obviously, we talk about kingdom builders and Heart for the House and those kind of things, very important part of what we do as church, taking us forward. But he talked about this, this season, this principle of farming, where every 7 years, you've got to give the soil a rest. And, at the end of that, if you don't do that, then you're going to kill out the soil. And there was this part in Queensland called the Lockyer Valley where they hadn't been resting the soil. So it was coming to the point where, the soil was no longer valid for farming. And he said, look, I just want to release everybody. If you need to take a rest, if you need to take a break and focus on, putting seed in the ground, then do that, Now, he released kind of people from their kingdom builders commitments and those kind of things and, rest the soil. Our Heart for the House or our kingdom builders that year was almost parable to the year before, a little bit down, but almost parable. But there was this understanding that if there is a time where you need to focus on what you need to focus on to keep maintaining what you believe for kingdom principles, then take that time. And I would encourage people, if it means that for a season, you just got to work harder on your business and some of the things you believe in kingdom mind have to, just hit pause for a second. That's okay. It shouldn't be the predominant goal, but I think it's okay. And, believing that you're going to come back stronger and be able to do more rather than, get to the point where, I put everything into the building church and, now my business has died and we all come out the other side of this bitter. I think all of us understand that we need everybody to be flourishing this season. The last thing we need is people's businesses to be going down, people to be losing jobs because they're so focused on keeping the church healthy during this season. I think, God's going to build his church. Gates of hell are not going to prevail against it. We all understand that. We all have a heart towards it. We all pray for it, believe for it, lean in towards it. If we've got time, we sow into it. But at the end of the day, if this portion of our church, if the business portion of our church isn't strong, our church will never be strong. So let's understand the connection between the two, that if we build this and we maintain, a high level during this season, we come back so much stronger as a church.
So good. Thanks, Darren. Guys, can we thank Darren for the last 2 weeks and his generosity?
Love you guys.
You're once in a generation, mate. We love you and we so appreciate your sowing into this community.
Would it be okay if I just talk to Badge Kasparian about his screensaver here? I'm very interested in that deer, that buck. He's not listening. He's gone. His attention.
He's in the shower.
Between his time and what he needed to do.
Yeah, mate.
He's back. Bear, what is that a buck that we can somehow meet in person?
I wish. That's a dream buck. That's what we all inspired to.
Hashtag dream buck. It's a thing.
It is a dream buck. Look, I live in America and, hunting it's a part of culture here. So, you've become all things to all men that you might win a few. So I'm just going to take a photo of my office wall up here and just share it with the group, just between us.
Oh, wow.
So good.
They're just decoration.
Yeah, well, I've got a few at home, which I'll post next Thursday.
All
But
right.
it's a yeah.
I like it.
Synthetic buckheads. Over to you, Dan.
Hey, thanks so much, Daz. Could you pray us out, mate? That'd be amazing.
Absolutely. Lord, I thank you. I thank you for every single person here today at the start of their day, just putting you first, believing for you to speak into their situation and circumstance. Lord, I pray that somewhere in the midst of, my rabble, that you would speak into people's lives, situations, circumstances. God, I believe for your blessing. I believe today that there's going to be phenomenal transactions, business deals made that are going to only enhance the people of your kingdom and your kingdom. Lord, I pray for your blessing, your protection, your prosperity. I pray for companies that are going to have to make decisions about staffing and those kind of things. Lord, I pray for wisdom, and I pray for your favor over people who are just putting you first when it comes to the kingdom and everything that they do with their business. And Lord, I pray your protection over them in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thanks again, Daz. Greatly appreciate everything you bring to our world, mate. And everyone, hope you have a great day. Hope that God uses even the cringy moments today. Believing there'll be lots of opportunity for you. Keep the good stories coming in. We'd love to hear them. Builds faith in me, builds faith in others. And looking forward to staying in touch. Sure, we'll see you in church tonight. Gathering with Pastor Brian to pray, 7 p.m. So definitely prioritize that. And look forward to seeing you across the weekend and back here next week. Be blessed, everyone.